The shriek of air raid sirens pierced the London night as Alistair Whitmore crouched behind his 3.7-inch anti-aircraft gun, sweat streaming down his face despite the October chill. It was October 15, 1940, and the German Luftwaffe had been pounding British cities for weeks with relentless precision. Above him, the distant drone of Heinkel bombers grew louder, their engines creating a mechanical symphony of death that had become all too familiar to the gunners of the 58th Heavy Anti-Aircraft Regiment. Whitmore pressed his eye against the predictor sight, watching the crosshairs dance uselessly as enemy aircraft weaved through the darkness at altitudes his equipment wasn't designed to track effectively. Standard gunnery doctrine demanded he follow the prescribed firing patterns, aim where the manual instructed, and hope for the best. But as another wave of incendiary bombs illuminated the Thames below in hellish orange light, Whitmore made a decision that would violate every rule in the Royal Artillery Handbook. He abandoned his predictor sight entirely, closed his eyes for 3 full seconds, and began calculating trajectories using nothing but mental arithmetic and intuition, born from weeks of watching his shells miss their targets. The mathematics racing through his mind were not taught in any gunnery school. The angles he computed defied official doctrine, and the firing sequence he was about to execute would either save dozens of civilian lives or earn him a court-martial by dawn. No one in the 58th Heavy Anti-Aircraft Regiment knew that one gunner's mathematical rebellion that night would revolutionize British air defense tactics and triple the kill rate of anti-aircraft batteries across the entire home front. Alistair Whitmore had never intended to become a mathematical revolutionary. Born in the industrial town of Middlesbrough in 1918, he was the son of a steelworker who possessed an almost supernatural ability to estimate precise temperatures in blast furnaces through pure instinct. Young Alistair inherited this peculiar gift for numerical intuition, manifesting as an extraordinary capacity for spatial reasoning that allowed him to calculate complex trajectories by watching birds in flight, estimate distances by counting heartbeats, and predict weather patterns by observing cloud formations. His mathematics instructor at Middlesbrough Grammar discovered Alistair's abilities when the young man submitted correct answers to complex geometry problems without showing any written work, explaining that he could visualize three-dimensional objects rotating in his mind and calculate volumes through mental manipulation rather than algebraic formulation. This extraordinary mathematical intuition created both opportunities and challenges as he progressed through education, with teachers appreciating his accuracy but remaining frustrated by his inability to demonstrate conventional mathematical notation that could be taught to other students. When war erupted in September 1939, Alistair was working as a senior surveyor for the Yorkshire Railway Company, where he had developed a reputation for completing complex engineering calculations with unprecedented speed and accuracy. His responsibilities included determining optimal grades for track construction and calculating load capacities for bridges, work that had made him legendary among construction crews, who nicknamed him the Calculator for his ability to estimate distances and angles, with accuracy exceeding sophisticated mechanical instruments. Edmund Hartwell, his supervisor, had grown accustomed to Alistair's habit of solving complex problems by staring at construction sites for several minutes before announcing precise measurements that proved accurate when verified through conventional methods, requiring hours of careful work. But as German U-boats began stalking British shipping lanes, Alistair felt compelled to contribute more directly to the war effort and enlisted in the Royal Artillery on December 3, 1939, specifically requesting anti-aircraft duty because the mathematical challenges of intercepting fast-moving aerial targets appealed to his analytical mind. Basic artillery training at Larkhill exposed Alistair to rigid mathematical formulas governing British gunnery doctrine, but he quickly noticed fundamental flaws in systems that assumed enemy aircraft would maintain predictable flight paths and consistent speeds. Standard predictor sight mechanisms were calibrated for ideal conditions that rarely existed in combat, where German pilots employed evasive maneuvers and irregular timing to confuse British gunners. During training exercises, Alistair consistently achieved higher hit rates by ignoring his predictor sight and calculating intercept points through mental computation based on visual observation rather than theoretical projections. His instructors were impressed by accuracy but concerned about unorthodox methods, warning that battlefield conditions would demand strict adherence to established procedures. But Alistair had already begun developing what he called dynamic trajectory prediction, incorporating real-time observations of target behavior, wind patterns, and atmospheric conditions into mathematical models that existed entirely within his mind. The strategic situation facing British air defenses in autumn 1940 was desperate in ways official communications avoided mentioning. German bomber formations were achieving devastating accuracy, while British anti-aircraft guns achieved hit rates of less than 2%, meaning fewer than 2 of every 100 shells fired actually damaged enemy targets. This reflected fundamental problems with doctrine developed during the First World War against slower aircraft operating under different conditions. German pilots in 1940 flew faster aircraft at varying heights, employed coordinated evasive maneuvers, and operated under darkness that rendered British predictor sights nearly useless. Heinkel. He-111 bombers could reach speeds of 270 miles per hour at altitudes exceeding 20,000 feet, presenting challenges existing British equipment wasn't designed to handle. Intelligence reports revealed German bomber crews treated British anti-aircraft fire as navigational aid rather than serious threat, using predictable shell burst patterns to confirm location during bombing runs. The German strategy represented calculated mathematical precision designed to overwhelm British capabilities through sustained bombardment. Luftwaffe commanders had analyzed British effectiveness rates and concluded existing defenses posed minimal threat, allowing increasingly bold operations. German formations approached targets in waves of 50 to 100 aircraft at staggered altitudes between 15 and 25,000 feet, using coordination that gave them significant advantages over British defensive systems, largely unchanged since the previous war. October 14, 1940 marked escalation, as German planners coordinated larger formations with sophisticated timing to maximize impact against London targets. The evening briefing delivered to Alistair's battery contained intelligence indicating German forces intended sustained bombardment throughout the night, with estimated numbers exceeding 200 aircraft approaching from multiple directions to overwhelm British capabilities. Standard defensive procedures called for predetermined firing patterns creating walls of anti-aircraft fire, but Alistair had calculated such tactics created predictable danger zones experienced German pilots could avoid through minor course corrections. His analysis of previous raids revealed systematic patterns suggesting opportunities for more effective responses based on predicting actual enemy behavior rather than theoretical assumptions. The first wave appeared as distant specks at approximately 8:15 that evening, engines creating the familiar droning soundtrack of London's nightly ordeal. Alistair pressed his eye against the predictor sight as required, but simultaneously began visual tracking of the lead formation, estimating approach speed through mental calculation of distance covered per unit time. His mathematical mind processed multiple data streams simultaneously, calculating wind speed from smoke movement, estimating altitude from engine sound intensity, and predicting flight paths based on current heading relative to London target areas. The predictor sight indicated firing solutions that would place shells where aircraft had been 30 seconds earlier, a timing error explaining why British fire consistently appeared behind German formations. Standard doctrine demanded following predictor sight calculations exactly, but Alister's mental calculations suggested German bombers flew 40 miles per hour faster than equipment assumed at altitudes 3,000 feet higher than detection systems indicated, following paths incorporating evasive maneuvers designed to avoid predictable British fire zones. As the formation passed overhead, Alister abandoned his predictor sight and began tracking through pure visual observation, calculating trajectory predictions based on real-time analysis of actual flight characteristics rather than predetermined assumptions. The mathematical complexity would have overwhelmed conventional methods, but his intuitive processing integrated multiple variables into targeting solutions adapting continuously as conditions evolved. The moment of mathematical rebellion arrived at exactly 8:27 as Alister fired his first shell using unauthorized targeting methodology while German formations approached Thames industrial targets with confidence from weeks of ineffective British opposition. His calculations predicted the lead Heinkel would be at specific coordinates when his shell reached optimal altitude, contradicting predictor sight readings by 400 yards horizontally and 2,000 feet vertically. The shell arced upward, following a ballistic path appearing aimed at empty air, but Alister's confidence remained absolute as he confirmed predictions proving accurate within acceptable margins. 23 seconds after firing, his shell exploded directly in the formation's path, close enough that the pilot immediately began evasive maneuvers, disrupting entire formation timing and bombing accuracy. The psychological impact was immediate, as German aircrew realized British fire had transformed from predictable inconvenience to lethal precision, forcing abandonment of systematic bombing patterns for survival-oriented flying that reduced operational effectiveness. Corporal Nathaniel Pembroke stared amazed at explosion occurring precisely where enemy aircraft actually were, rather than where predictor sights indicated, accuracy exceeding anything achieved during months of defensive operations. Without waiting for authorization, Alister calculated firing solutions for subsequent aircraft, processing new flight paths and speed adjustments, responding to his previous shot. His second shell exploded even closer, forcing additional German aircraft to break formation and abandon planned bombing runs, scattering ordnance across non-strategic areas rather than concentrating on military targets. The cascade effect propagated throughout the formation as pilots realized British capabilities had transformed overnight from manageable nuisance to deadly threat, requiring immediate tactical response. Alister's third shell incorporated evasive responses from previous shots, treating engagement as dynamic system rather than independent problem solved through static analysis. The explosion occurred between two bombers attempting to maintain formation while avoiding fire, creating psychological crisis for aircrew accustomed to minimal ground threat. German pilots began executing desperate evasive maneuvers, consuming additional fuel, disrupting navigation, and forcing bomb jettison over unpopulated areas rather than maintaining course toward strategic targets. His mathematical precision created tactical confusion as aircrew struggled developing countermeasures against defensive fire, no longer following predictable patterns. The effectiveness reached climax when his seventh shell achieved catastrophic hit on a German bomber attempting escape, the aircraft exploding in brilliant fireball visible throughout London that proved British defenses possessed capabilities German planning failed to anticipate. Formations that approached with confidence based on weeks of ineffective British fire were now fleeing after unprecedented losses caused by one gunner's mathematical rebellion against established doctrine. Within 15 minutes of his first unauthorized shot, the entire raid character changed from systematic bombardment to chaotic survival-oriented flying achieving minimal damage while exposing aircraft to increased interception risk. The immediate aftermath created confusion and excitement throughout the regiment as officers struggled understanding how their battery achieved unprecedented success against formations previously operating with apparent immunity. Lieutenant Malcolm Weatherby arrived demanding explanations for dramatic targeting accuracy resulting in confirmed destruction of 2 bombers and tactical disruption of entire enemy formation. Alister's attempts explaining his methodology encountered resistance from military bureaucracy, valuing procedural compliance over battlefield effectiveness, as superior officers struggled reconciling innovative solutions with established doctrine. Military investigators arrived the following morning, conducting formal interviews about unprecedented success, bringing skeptical attitudes about revolutionary improvements achieved through unauthorized methods. The investigation revealed mathematical sophistication of Alister's system while exposing institutional challenges facing organizations attempting to evaluate innovations exceeding their technical knowledge. His explanations were mathematically sound, but violated fundamental assumptions embedded in British doctrine, creating cognitive dissonance among investigators unable to dispute results but uncomfortable with methods. Technical analysis revealed Alister's system incorporated dynamic prediction and real-time adjustment, representing significant advances over existing doctrine based on static calculations. His algorithms processed multiple variables, simultaneously generating solutions adapting continuously to changing conditions. Sophistication mechanical predictor sites couldn't match. The theoretical foundations drew upon advanced concepts not taught in standard training, requiring analytical capabilities difficult to transfer through conventional instruction. Strategic impact became apparent during subsequent raids as German commanders struggled adapting to unexpectedly effective British fire no longer following predictable patterns, leading to decreased bombing accuracy and reduced psychological impact against civilian morale. Post-war evaluation revealed Alister's innovations influenced tactical doctrine development and equipment design throughout the remainder of World War II, though his role remained largely unrecognized outside specialized circles. His system demonstrated fundamental principles about dynamic prediction incorporated into training programs, though without explicit attribution. The significance extended beyond immediate applications, as success challenging established doctrine encouraged other personnel questioning conventional assumptions and developing creative solutions. Alister returned to railway employment after military service, resuming surveying while maintaining interest in mathematical applications to engineering challenges. Letters discovered in archives decades later revealed German bomber crews had been significantly affected by encounters with accurate British fire during Alister's implementation period, with aircrew reporting psychological stress and reduced confidence caused by unexpectedly effective ground defenses. These documents confirmed strategic impact while demonstrating how individual innovations could influence enemy behavior without official recognition. The mathematical principles he developed were eventually incorporated into computer-based fire control systems used by post-war forces, though such applications occurred decades after his original discoveries. The historical significance of Alister Whitmore's mathematical rebellion extends beyond immediate tactical success, representing fundamental principles about individual innovation and institutional adaptation continuing to influence military development. His story demonstrates how mathematical insight, combined with battlefield observation, can generate strategic advantages exceeding established doctrine capabilities, but only when structures exist to recognize and exploit innovations effectively. The sophistication challenged assumptions about individual analytical capability versus organizational effectiveness, revealing tensions between procedural uniformity and tactical creativity, remaining relevant to contemporary challenges. The question emerging from Alister's extraordinary night of mathematical rebellion is whether we possess intellectual courage to challenge established systems when logic reveals inadequacy and lives hang in the balance. Would you have abandoned your predictor sight and trusted mathematical intuition over doctrine when accuracy meant the difference between success and failure, or followed orders and watched enemy bombers continue unimpeded by ineffective defensive fire? Comment below and share this story so others remember that mathematical courage can change history through innovative thinking, applied to seemingly impossible challenges that defeat conventional wisdom and institutional solutions.